Okay, yeah, let's go. And Tim, you ready? Tim, you ready? Tim, you ready? Tim, you ready? Okay. Okay, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us here this evening. On the agenda tonight, we have two delegations, one from Metro Vancouver, about the work underway to complete the Metro 2050 Regional Growth Strategy update, and the other from Transit on transportation planning that affects our area. We are very pleased to have both of these delegates here to provide us with an overview of their projects, as these topics are important to our residents and our council. And I'm out of breath. Another pair of glasses. Anyway, I want to remind everyone tonight in attendance tonight that delegations, these representatives are here to share information with council and the community. This is not a community engagement process, which means the delegations are taking questions from the public. However, I know there are opportunities to connect with Metro Vancouver as part of their community engagement process. As an example, I know Metro Vancouver has a link to its comment page for the Metro 2050 Regional Growth Strategy under initiatives at metrovancouver.org. Public webinar on Tuesday, October the 19th. I also encourage both delegations to share information about how our residents keep after this meeting, ask questions and share input about your initiatives. As a reminder, anyone who has public items on the agenda, remember that the delegation from Metro Vancouver is for Metro 2050 Regional Growth Strategy, not about Anmore South specifically. So with that being said, we'll call to order the regular council meeting Tuesday, October the 5th, 7:04. Approval of the agenda. The recommendation would read.
The agenda be approved as
Could I get someone to move that? Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Public input. Public has comments to council on any item shown on the meeting agenda. 2-minute time limit applies to speakers. I will now open the floor. If we'll just get the. If you could start off with your name and address, please.
Andrew Simpson, 1466 Crystal Creek. Thank you attendees, Metro Vancouver and TransLink for making the lengthy trek out to Anmore today to present the 2050 strategy. I'm sure the residents in attendance and online via YouTube tonight recognize that today highlights semi-rural village of Anmore is not at all close transit-oriented centers, does not meet the 2050 criteria to remove containment boundary. Such a change would lead to densification, and the major urban sprawl that Metro 2050 was actually established to prevent. I hope that we will hear tonight confirmation goal number one in your strategy, such that to create urban areas, urban development in the urban containment boundary, and protecting rural lands from development. Rural lands are intended to protect the existing characters, landscapes, and environmental qualities of rural communities outside the urban containment boundary. This description perfectly fits the nature of Anmore. The Save Anmore Coalition opposes any change to the urban containment boundary. Truly hopes Village Council gains some wisdom from your presentation tonight, and consider our repeated request for a referendum on urban densification. Thank you.
Any other public input? Please, if you'd stand
on my tippy toes there. Jody Summers, resident, 60 East Road. I fully support the Metro Vancouver 2050 plan to preserve our rural status as well as all our neighboring communities. Over 1 million people traveled to our village last year to access Benson Lake and the many walking and hiking trails to take in the beauty of forested relaxation and to get away from the urban sprawl. Objective number 5 of the Metro Vancouver's 2050 plan is to prevent high-density development where there is no major corridors. With the removal of the proposed village extension road, Anmore only has 2 roads in and out of our community. The local road is already overburdened. Anmore's 2016 traffic study that East Road was nearing capacity, and that was almost 6 years ago. With lake traffic Anmore will become a bottleneck of traffic. Council's been asked to do a traffic study prior to any development decisions being made. We've been told that there is no money in the budget for this. Anmore needs all the facts before any decisions are made that can change our community forever. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public input?
Before I introduce myself, acknowledge that Anmore is located on the traditional and ancestral and unceded territory of the Coast Salish people, including the Tsleil-Waututh, Squamish, and Musqueam nations. It's going to be hard to speak with Mascon, but I'm Nancy Maloney, 1724 East Road, where I have resided for the past 26 years. I have continuously lived in the Tri-Cities area since the early 1970s. I'm a retired PhD registered psychologist. Related to the development of the outcoat lands, the recent community engagement survey concluded, and I quote, the majority of community engagement for Anmore South not support moving forward with urban designation. End of quote. The most recent community survey in 2002 clearly rejected even reducing lot size to 1/2 of an acre. It was noted that higher density increased assessments consequently taxed for larger properties like ours. This is only advantageous for persons to take the money and not for persons to remain in their homes. I support the first decision after the 2022 municipal election to provide the opportunity for all residents to have in the future of our community, not just the present pro-development Anmore's Council. I personally support preserving Anmore's real character. Is consistent with the 2015 growth study states not intended as future development areas. High density development.
It's 2 minutes. Wrap it up.
I'm not. I timed this. My 2 minutes. Within my 2 minutes when I introduced myself.
Timed it right now. If you could just conclude, wrap it. Have a few more minutes. Wrap it up.
High density development encouraged only in transit-oriented communities. Multiple occupation vehicles, walking, transportation. Lacking any designated lane for bikes, and Anmore's two main corridors, East Road and Sunnyside, are both highly hazardous for persons riding bikes. At least one person has already been killed by a vehicle while walking on the East Road pathway. Even crossing these roads is dangerous. Given sight impediments, traveling beyond the posted speed limit, and the large number of Munson Lake visitors. Under the present rule designation, Guyocco lands could be developed by a CD zone with consideration for parking networks, trail housing for all ages, and is also handicapped accessible. More creative alternatives could also be considered. And there's a much greater need for that additional condos area of North Fraser.
Thank you. Anybody else want to provide any comments at public?
Bill Cook, 1660 East Road. In light of the impact development of Anmore South could have on our entire community with respect to sewer and transportation and a huge impact on the environment, I believe that only 12 months to the next election. Many decisions should be tabled until the next election, and everybody can have their say. What is it? We can't really have large gatherings and an open forum with all the residents coming together for the safety and development. Was it, we're looking for the best path forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments? Come up to the microphone, please.
There's just a text saying the voices are repeating at that microphone. So someone texted from the YouTube saying they cannot hear people at that microphone. It's doing a double reverberation or something.
I think I've fixed it on my end. Thank you. I'm just communicating with somebody.
Yeah.
Dick, excuse me. Is this on?
Yes.
Okay. Dick Cresswell, 1608 East Road. I'm going to be talking about the proposed redesignation to urban from rural. I regard this as a massive, unacceptable impact on our lifestyle in Anmore. That's the main thing, the lifestyle in Anmore. There's just too many problems associated with redesignation to urban, many of them unknown and unexpected. Sewers, that's a big deal. Most of us don't even think about sewers. We don't want to think about sewers. We've got our own septic fields. We've got our own septic tanks. And if they don't work, we repair them. Just like you repair a car if your car doesn't work. We don't have an adequate road system to deal with this massive development and the increase in the population. The taxes will have to go up over the years to maintain all of the new infrastructure that comes in. I realize that they'll put up the money in the first place and they'll provide lots of infrastructure. But after they've gone, we'll be left with the tax bill. I never thought I'd be saying this part that I'm going to talk about right now. So if we're determined to go down this blind alley, why not go whole hog and apply to Port Moody for amalgamation? I believe we could make a very good deal with the city and tap into their already existing infrastructure, and we would be the beneficiaries of the sewer, we'd be beneficiaries of the police department, the fire department. I think that what we really need to do...
Mr. Cresswell, we have to wrap it up.
Okay, I will.
Yeah, thank you.
I think we'd have a referendum, and I think we need to have one quickly, and I think we have to find out what the public really wants, and I do not understand what council has against a referendum if it's properly constructed. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public input? Okay, we'll move on now to, Miss Elrick.
Thank you. I do have one submission that was sent in by email, if I may.
Sure.
This is from Lynn Burton, and her submission is, while I'm certain that it will be difficult to get all of the players on side, Metro 2050 leadership has laudably geared up to begin to reclaim our collective future.
Sorry, we can't hear over here. Sorry, we can't hear anything over here.
It seems to me that if the general consensus of the Metro Vancouver communities is truly to aggressively tackle climate change and extreme weather events, the Metro 2050 objectives are spot on. 1, protect and enhance ecosystems, the forest canopy, watersheds, environmentally sensitive lands, and wildlife habitat. 2, hold fast on the urban containment boundary. 3, guard against the further extension of urban services such as sewers. 4, concentrate development in transit corridors. 5, resist pressures to increase urban sprawl. And 6, preserve rural and recreational lands for the enjoyment of all. The way I see it, the little village of Anmore is currently posed to help Metro 2050 deliver on these priorities, especially helping to protect 50% of land for nature and increase the tree canopy cover. The fundamental theme of Anmore's official community plan is preservation of the village's surrounding environment and semi-rural character. Our official community plan, as articulated in the regional context statement, sets a stay-the-course expectation of just under 4,000 residents in 2041. While there is a 150-acre Ioko Lands Special Study Area, it is currently zoned rural and is outside the urban containment boundary. It appears that the majority of participants in the community engagement do not support moving forward with an urban designation at this time. Anmore Community Engagement, Anmore South, Mickelson Consultants, April 21st, 2021. Although the owner of the Ioko lands has been promoting the idea of a total urban community with over 4,000 new residents on part of this land since 2015, clearly this wish is not consistent with many Anmore residents, the OCP, the regional contact statement, or the objectives of Metro 2050.
Good, thank you. Okay, we'll now move on to delegations. I'd like to welcome Sean Galloway here from Metro Vancouver in the Planning Department. Welcome, and thank you for coming.
Good evening. Sorry, excuse me. Good evening. Before I proceed with introductions, I just would respectfully like to acknowledge that Metro Vancouver's region residents live, work, and learn on the shared territories of many Indigenous peoples, including the 10 local First Nations. I also want to thank all of the other nations on whose territories we are located today for making this meeting possible. So my name is Sean Galloway. I'm the Director of Regional Planning and Electoral Area Services with Metro Vancouver. And with me tonight I have James Stiver, who's the Manager of Growth Management and Transportation, and his division is leading the Metro 2050 update. We truly appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight to present Metro 2050, and which is, as I mentioned, the draft update to the regional growth strategy. Part of the reason why we're so excited to be here is that this important 80-page plan really allows us to emphasize everything that Metro Vancouver does. How we plan for projected growth and land use across the region has a massive impact, for better or for worse, on including the regional utilities and services provided by Metro Vancouver. Over the past 2 years, we've highlighted the importance of building a resilient region and taking action on climate change. As many know, COVID-19 has had an immense impact on our lives and has taught us many critical things, such as protecting and expanding our parkland to meet growing popularity for being outdoors and in nature. Additionally, we know from what we experienced this summer through extreme heat, drought, and wildfires that climate action and planning for resilience across the region is of the utmost importance. These principles and many others are within the plan and the document that is before you tonight, and James will take you through that document in his presentation. Last bit I'd like to say is that it's critical, your input is critical in ensuring that this update reflects the community's interests and needs, and we continue to look forward to collaborating with both yourselves and your staff in an effort to build a strong, resilient document that continues to move the region forward by 2050. With that, I'll pass it over to James to take you through Metro 2050's content.
Thank you, Sean. I apologize for having my back to everybody tonight, but that's the setup of the room. So thank you, Mayor McEwen and members of council, for welcoming us to your beautiful community tonight. As Sean indicated, my name is James Stiver, and not going to get into a lot of detail with you tonight. Obviously, it's a very weighty plan, but what I will do, and I hope to achieve this evening, is to provide an overview of the content for you and help. The purpose of this presentation is to help all member jurisdictions, including the village, prepare and provide comments by our comment deadline, which is the end of November. So briefly, I'm going to touch on the background and what our regional growth strategy is, the scope of the update that we've been working on over the last 2 years, and then overview of Metro 2050 around the population and housing projections that were undertaken, the 5 goal areas, and what's new, and finish off with the opportunities for further comment and involvement for you and your community. So, not to dwell on it too deeply, but regional growth strategies have a long history in this region, dating back formally in the form of a regional plan to the 1960s, and that evolved through the decades into what we see as the current regional growth strategy, which is Metro 2040, which was adopted by the Metro Vancouver, at that time Greater Vancouver Board. It's a long-range policy plan. It's set out in the Local Government Act. It's intended to manage growth by the shared municipalities in the region, and it underscores a strong history of regional planning and infrastructure planning in this region. And it has been signed on by all member jurisdictions and has shaped and provided the beautiful and livable region we see today. So in terms of the update that we've been working on, it's not to replace Metro 2040. There's a lot of great things in that document that have been working well. It's intended to build on the successes of Metro 2040. But it's also to align, and we'll hear in a moment from TransLink staff, to align with the Transport 2050 plan that is also being reviewed at this time, apply what we've learned over the last 10 years of implementation of Metro 2040, but also to respond to the critical challenges that are gaining importance over the recent years. And it's not to say things like climate change, housing affordability, social equity are new inventions in this region, but certainly the prevalence of those issues and the impacts on our community are felt stronger now than ever. So over the last 2 years, we've had extensive engagement on this plan and the background research pieces that went into it with municipalities such as yours, other regional agencies such as the port and the airport and health authorities, First Nations, with TransLink staff. There were 11 themed policy reviews or background research documents that are all available on the Metro Vancouver website, and I welcome you to take a look at those, that provided the opportunities and challenges that shape the content that you see before you. We've had online engagement opportunities. We had to pivot quite substantially, as I'm sure you could appreciate with COVID, rather than having in-person engagement opportunities. We had to pivot to online, which I think we managed fairly well. And of course, with the elected officials, yourself, Mayor McEwen, and others around the Metro board table. So most recently, in this year, the engagement has stepped up on content drafting with the same agencies. There was extensive engagement with an intergovernmental advisory committee with representatives of staff from regional municipalities and other agencies that we've been working with over the last 9 months, and extensive engagement with the regional planning committee and board as well. And right now, we're into a 5-month comment period on the draft Metro 2040, or Metro 2050 rather, but more on that in a moment. So the current draft of Metro 2050, as I said, builds on the content and the framework of Metro 2040. Extensive engagement has led to new changes and policy directions that respond to municipal requests that have come in through this extensive consultation, and includes actions for Metro Vancouver, member jurisdictions, and TransLink, very similar to what Metro 2040 has set out. And the draft was presented and endorsed by the Metro Vancouver board and distributed for the formal comment period, which commenced in July of this year. So fundamental to the growth strategy is that we are a growing region, and we will continue to do so despite COVID, and COVID is a bit of an anomaly for all of us to get our head around, and we won't know the short, medium, and long-term impacts of COVID until we really get through it and look back. But there's the fundamental drivers of growth in this region are still there. The guidance that we provide our member municipalities and partner agencies around population, housing, and employment growth are instrumental to planning infrastructure investments and housing approvals throughout the region. They're showing that we are going to continue to grow by about 35,000 people a year, which in perspective is about the population of Port Moody every year coming to the region. So that translates into approximately 1 million new people between now and the year 2050. Similar projections are driving housing starts and employment starts in this region to the tune of about 500,000 new homes and 500,000 new jobs projected to come to this region over the next 30 years. These projections are all within a margin of error, plus or minus 15%, and they've been ground truth with extensive consultations with municipal staff and local OCP projections. So Metro 2050 is built on the pillars of 5 goals, very similar to Metro 2040. I think it was already mentioned this evening, creating a compact urban area is goal number 1. That has not changed. supporting a sustainable economy, which includes industrial and agricultural lands in this region, protecting the environment and responding to climate and natural hazards. A new direction for goal number 4 is, instead of being complete communities, it is focused solely on housing affordability, given the prominence of that issue in this region. And the 5th goal is around transportation, ties in very nicely to TransLink's work. So the key planning tools that you'll see in both the current regional growth strategy and Metro 2050 is the reinforcement of an urban containment boundary, 6 regional land use designations, an amendment process, special study areas, these have not changed. Urban centers and frequent transit development areas also have not changed. What you'll see new in Metro 2050 is a new concept around corridor planning called major transit growth corridors that connects closer to the regional transportation strategy and tries to bring about opportunities for middle form density forms and more transit-oriented development along the major routes in this region. What you'll also see is new overlays that try to do more to protect the important industrial lands in this region that support our regional, provincial, and national trade functions in this region around port lands, railway lands, airport lands, and of course stronger protections around natural and natural resource areas in the plan. So just to dive a little deeper on what's proposed, increased clarity on urban centers and frequent transit development areas, the criteria that goes into the center types, and how municipalities can define those and change over time in those definitions. There's a stronger alignment between the locations for transit, planned transit investments with TransLink and these major transit growth corridors. A new 15% affordable housing, particularly rental housing target in urban centers. Now that's a regional target. It's not a target imposed on any municipalities, but it's meant to get at the most challenging parts of this region to provide affordable housing, and that's at the urban centers, which tend to be the highest supported by transit. There are new policies that encourage more transit-oriented affordable housing, protecting the existing stock, particularly rental stock, from renovictions and demevictions. There's stronger protections for industrial land and some added flexibility for mixed use and more residential uses in employment areas around those rapid transit stations. Stronger climate action, and it was already mentioned this evening by one of the members of the public, given the challenges that we're facing as a region, more focus on adaptation and collective adaptation measures in this new plan. There's a target to protect 50% of the land base in the region for nature. We're currently at just over 40%, and there's a new 40% tree canopy cover target within the urban containment boundary to encourage more urban trees to deal with the heat effects that Sean was touching on earlier and stormwater, increased stormwater issues. There's more explicit integration of equity outcomes. We had the assistance of an equity consultant help us with new directions to help us get to a better place for everyone. And there's more of an emphasis on building strong and lasting relationships with First Nations and incorporating their planning and development needs with that of the region. And keeping in mind the regional targets are that they're regional, they're not specific to any one municipality. And each municipality, including Anmore, has a significant role to play to advance these objectives locally and in your local context. So I touched on this earlier. This is the opportunity for comment from our member jurisdictions, from members of the public, from other regional agencies. The plan is now out for comment until the end of November. This plan is to be shaped by our member jurisdictions because this is a shared plan. We're requesting any written comments coming from the village or other municipalities to be by council resolution to increase the formality, and we're hoping to have them back to us by the end of November of this year. There are also online feedback opportunities for residents, businesses, other agencies that are, and I'll pop up an email and website address at the end of the presentation for those that are interested. So coming up in the next couple of months, and I'm at the end of the presentation now, There are other engagement opportunities. We're doing a round of presentations such as this to all member jurisdictions. There's a public webinar coming up, and it was mentioned already tonight on October 19th. There are social media promotions that are going on right now and ongoing meetings with our Intergovernmental Advisory Committee. The feedback form is really geared towards the public, and we had several virtual open houses that we've been hosting in the recent weeks. So in terms of next steps, we're in our comment period now. Based on feedback we hear back from our municipal partners towards the end of December, we will reassess the timeline that we're on to determine alignment with local plans. But the schedule that we're on right now, as directed by our board, is to have a first bylaw reading in January of next year. We have to hold a regional public hearing at Metro Vancouver on the plan, and then it goes out for acceptance from all municipalities in the spring and early part of next year, with a planned final bylaw reading by mid next year, June or July, pending acceptance of all the municipalities. So if members of council or the public wants to reach regional planning staff directly, that's our email address, regionalplanning@metrovancouver.org, or I don't have the web address, but metrovancouver.org/metro2050 is the project page, and all the resources are there, including access to the feedback form, and we welcome comments from anyone. So with that, I finish up the presentation. So thank you very much, Your Worship.
The only thing though is, and I don't want to kind of burst the bubble, is that I going through the previous Metro 2040. That timeline that you put there is pretty aggressive, and I will be almost certain that that's not going to be met from what I'm seeing. So I don't think there is the rush. We're going to be going into, as some people said earlier, a municipal election this following year. So I would imagine that the feeling that I get is from people is that because it has to get out, every community has to sign on, and I know that there's some big questions regarding some of the bigger municipalities as to land use challenges. So my prediction is that this is not going to be moving forward until after the next election. This is my take on it. So I don't want to spill the beans, but that's my take on it right now. So I don't think there's a necessary rush, but I think it's important that people become educated in this process. We went through a real extensive one, and for 2040, it was a challenge to get all municipalities to sign on, and I know that former Mayor Weinberg, who was mayor at the time, really fought hard for a designation of semi-rural, which designation for semi-rural, which was so undefined from so many different aspects that it wasn't, and that's where the special study generated from. So anyway, I think I really appreciate it, and I would really urge everyone to get involved in regards to understanding it, provide comments that they would like to, for Metro Vancouver, but I at this point, I don't think there's a real rush for any of the councils to move forward at this point. But I just wanted to thank you both for coming out here tonight. Much appreciated, and starting the conversation in regards to Metro 2050, and that there's a plan behind all of this sort of ideas of transit network, which we're going to find out now. So thank you both.
Great. Thank you, Your Worship.
Good. And now I will introduce Vincent Gonzalez. Sorry, I probably didn't pronounce that right. Presenting from TransLink regarding Transport 2050. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to come and share with you just some information on Transport 2050. And I'm very happy to be joining Metro Vancouver as they're sharing information about the regional growth strategy. Tonight I'm just going to give you a bit of an overview of Transport 2050, which is the regional transportation strategy. And we're going to be looking primarily at kind of phases 1 and 2, and then phase 3, which is going to be launching on October 12th. So what is Transport 2050? Well, we owe our lives today to the forward thinking of the planners and the leaders back in 1993. In 1993, the regional transportation strategy was developed, and at that time it was Transport 2021. The exciting part is that many of the plans that were identified in that plan are either complete or close to completion. And so when we're looking at a regional transportation strategy, ultimately we're looking at setting projects, services, and transportation policies in place for the next 30 years. And it's a shared strategy with municipal governments, Metro Vancouver, and the province. As I mentioned, Transport 2050 is divided into 3 phases. This was the largest ever public engagement that TransLink has ever done. In the first phase of engagement, we were very successful in achieving just over 30,000 completed surveys. We also received 4,000 ideas, which was outstanding for our region. In phase 1, we worked with Metro Vancouver during their regional growth strategy in 2019. And the focus of phase 1 was really to get a pulse of the region and to understand the values and the ideas for transportation. For phase 2, the consultation ran in April to May of this year, thanks to COVID, unfortunately. We would have hoped to have done it a bit sooner, but it was slightly delayed. But the focus of phase 2 was really on gathering feedback on the goals and the transformative actions that were identified. And then we're looking at launching phase 3 engagement in the coming weeks on October 12th. And phase 3 is really going to be an opportunity to provide a comprehensive draft of the regional transportation strategy and get public feedback on it. In phase 1, we learned about people's values, and we learned that people in our region really value the natural assets and being close to their daily needs. Some of the concerns that we learned in phase 1 were housing affordability, road congestion, and climate change. And that people's top priorities, even for drivers in the region, were to expand and improve transit. Phase 2, as I said, ran earlier this year, and this was really a pulse check on what we'd heard in phase 1. We received over 5,000 completed surveys, and it was a lengthy one at that. And in phase 2, we shared the draft goals, and then we identified 3 specific actions that we wanted to get feedback on. The information was pretty complex, but we were very fortunate to provide educational material and make it more understandable through videos and a very helpful discussion guide. We also really factored in different demographics, which factored in on different feedback as to the issues. The draft goals that were identified and shared in phase 1 were convenient, reliable, affordable, safe and comfortable, and carbon-free choices. And we learned that these are the goals were very important for the region. And even across different demographics, they were very important. So, in the final strategy, these goals will support the detailed targets. The actions that we identified in phase 2 that I mentioned, the 3 actions, were people first streets, rapid transit, and automated vehicles. And we really sought to get feedback on those 3 specific actions. So that brings us to phase 3. What we've now done is we've taken all the helpful information we received in phases 1 and 2, and it is now been combined into phase 3, and it is now the foundation of phase 3. The other thing that's really important, which I really want to emphasize, is in this project, we've really focused on social equity. We've really done our best to ensure that we've heard from representatives across our region from all different walks of life. So this third phase launches on October 12th and runs to the 29th. And in this phase, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be giving the public an opportunity to either provide their feedback on a draft strategy, more of an executive summary, so kind of more of a high-level feedback, or they can actually go into the full 100-page document and provide feedback on each detail. So they can either do a 2 to 5 minute survey, or it can be a 15 to 20 minute survey, really looking at kind of getting into the depth of it. And then once all this feedback is complete, we're going to be sharing the final results with the Mayor's Council later this year. And then we're hoping to have the final regional transportation strategy complete in early 2022 to then be shared with the public. So that's it, and I'd welcome any questions from Mayor or members of Council.
Any questions? No? Well, I just wanted to thank you, Mr. Gonsalves. It was a great presentation. I've seen it a few times, and it is exciting because the two, and it's great to have both Metro here as well, because the two work succinctly in regards to how we're going to be developing the region. So I really appreciate you coming here and thanking you. And I think we've got information. If anybody in the audience would like to, again, follow up with at the Village Hall, we can forward some of the contact information in regards to if you have any comments or questions. So Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll give you a moment to pack up before we get on to our regular business then. And thank you again for making the venture out on this stormy night. Don't forget your umbrella. Somebody's... There you go. Thank you. Take care. Okay, we'll get on to the regular business. Adoption of the minutes of the regular council meeting held on September 14th, 2021. The recommendation would read:
That the minutes of the regular council meeting held on September 14th, 2021 be adopted as circulated.
Someone to move that? Moved, seconded. Any discussion? See none. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Is there any business arising from the minutes? No. We'll move on to the consent agenda. Any council member who wishes to remove an item for further discussion may do so at this time.
I'd like to remove 7C.
7C. Anybody else?
That's what I want.
Okay. So could I get someone to move the consent agenda other than 7C? Moved, seconded. Any discussion? See none. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. We'll now go on to 7C, letter re-donation to Village of Lytton. Recommendation we that council receive the communication from the Regional District of Mount Washington dated August 27th regarding donations to the Village of Lytton for information. So this is only an information item, but I will, Councillor Wevering.
Yeah, I guess this one struck me. I think this one probably might have struck a lot of people when that whole village burned to the ground in about an hour. I almost think we should consider some sort of donation. I know a lot of people with private property is covered by insurance. In a lot of cases, I don't think it is. I just feel that we would appreciate the same thing. I mean, being in a wildfire area, this same sort of thing could happen to us. So I don't know what council feels about that, about making a donation.
Councillor Trowbridge.
I was going to recommend the same thing.
Okay.
We're a village. We're in a risk area. I guess everybody in BC is in a risk area, but I like particularly where they did $1 per dollar per resident, or however they calculated that. You know, it's not horribly onerous, and I think when areas like that are in need, if we're able to help, we should. I think we should do more than receive it.
Good. Any other, Councillor Later?
I'm not opposed. I'm not opposed to the concept at all, but are they not getting money from the provincial government?
I believe, Ms. Halliwell?
I expect they would be seeing some through
Yeah.
insurance as well as contributions from the provincial government, but I don't know to what extent.
Yeah.
Okay.
And if I may clarify, I'd rather see this go to the people of Lytton if there's a charity that's set up to help the people. I think, you know, the village infrastructure will probably be covered in some way. And I'm not ready to make a resolution to exactly where we're donating, but I know I want to do something. I think we have to recognize it. So
I'm on that exact same page.
Could I recommend that we just get a little bit more information about charities that have been set up, perhaps the situation that the village itself is in, and then we would consider maybe a future resolution to give it to the most needy or split the difference or something like that. I just want to make sure it's going to the right place.
I think it's a really good point. I think as well, I know that CN Rail has been in conversations about a fairly significant donation as well, because they could be some liability there in regards to how this started and that. But I think that we need to get a report in regards to the fundraising and avenues that we could take in regards at a future council meeting. So if that's...
We could certainly bring that back for the next regular council
Do you need
meeting.
that as a resolution or just a direction?
No, we can bring that back.
Perfect. Good. Okay, good. So that will come back at a future council meeting, and we'll have much more details. So, okay, so we'll just defer 7C then. Is that correct, Ms. Elrick?
You can also just receive it as well.
Okay, motion to receive, moved, seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Carried unanimously. Okay, we're now on to 9A, legislative reports, Anmore procedure bylaw, electronic meetings. A report dated October 1st, 2021 from Ms. Elrick, Manager of Corporate Services. Ms. Elrick.
Thank you. So in response to the COVID pandemic, the provincial government made certain allowances for local governments, one of which was to hold meetings electronically, and secondly was a temporary provision that we could use platforms such as Zoom that do not store data within Canada, which is a requirement of FOIPA legislation. So since the state of emergency has ended at the end of June, the provision to hold electronic meetings was for 90 days past that period, which is now expired as of September 28th. So a new bill was introduced and passed on the 29th of September, the day after the regulations ended, to allow for electronic meetings, that would allow councils to amend their procedure bylaw to enable continuation of electronic meetings should they choose. Some of the criteria for the electronic meetings would be challenging for a community of our size to meet, namely the requirements that if a meeting is held electronically, there's also a requirement that there be a place, which in Anmore would be most likely this building, where people could still come to hear and see the meeting, the electronic meeting, and an officer would need to be present at that place. So in this case, that would be either myself or Ms. Halliwell. So logistically, to do that on an ongoing basis may be challenging. Also, the platform that we're using currently would not be conducive to that, nor would Zoom in the future, so we would have to look at some new technology in order to make that functional for us. So what staff is recommending as an interim measure to have council consider is that we amend the procedure bylaw to enable council to still hold electronic meetings in emergency situations. And that would be an emergent situation as defined by the mayor or the corporate officer. That could be something like the pandemic that we would never have envisioned a couple of years ago. It could be a flood, a fire, any other natural disaster. It could be an emergency, a financial situation, or a legal situation. So it would still give council that flexibility to be able to hold a meeting electronically should they have to. If we were in a situation like we are again, but noting that that would not be sort of the norm for the village. As well, we do have a provision currently in the procedure bylaw that does allow up to 2 members of council to participate in a meeting electronically. So staff would suggest that that stay as is, and that a member of council could still participate electronically. That would not need to be changed in the procedure bylaw. So I do have a recommendation that council direct staff to prepare an amendment to Anmore Procedure Bylaw 541-2016 to enable electronic council meetings to be held in emergency circumstances.
Okay, someone to move it, seconded. Before I call the question, this is very consistent with a lot of the other municipalities in the region, Surrey and Vancouver as well, and that have much more technological abilities at their hand, but we're very, very limited here. I know even when we tried to have a couple computers on Wi-Fi and that, it drains our system in that. So anyway, any other comments?
Yeah,
Councillor Weber.
Platform would we be using in an emergency situation?
We could likely use the Teams platform because we do have Office 365 now, and our data would be stored inside Canada.
We would participate in that?
Yeah, the public, we could send an invite in. We would just need to work out the capabilities of then getting that onto our YouTube and that sort of thing. But I wouldn't envision this being a regular occurrence, so I think we would be able to manage.
Right. Councillor Trowbridge.
So I'm going to ask it a little bit differently. Does our hybrid system that we've been working with comply with what they're recommending?
Yes, the hybrid system would still apply. Just for clarification, the hybrid system where a member of council could call in to an in-person meeting, yes, that would still be fine, and we can carry on in that manner without.
And in the emergency situation, we could use this little system. And
the emergency situation, all members of council could participate electronically through some sort of media platform, and then either myself or Ms. Halliwell would be here at the Village Hall or at another place that we would provide notice to the public should a member of the public not have access to that technology, where they could come to either listen to or hear and listen to the meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments? I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Thank you, Ms. Elrick. We'll now move on to 11A new business, Village of Anmore special event status. Council discuss Village of Anmore special events for balance of 2021 year. Ms. Halliwell.
Thank you, Mayor McEwen. So I'm sure as everybody is aware, given the rising COVID case numbers, we made the difficult decision to cancel Mom Murray Day recently in mid-September. We're quickly approaching the end of October, which is typically when we hold our Halloween fireworks events. So this item is here to present an opportunity for council to consider whether or not they'd like to go ahead with that event or not. And the other event that we have on the books for the year would be our Light Up Spirit Park event, which is our Christmas event happening in December. We don't need to make a decision about whether or not we're going to have that event at this point, but what I would like to hear from council is if you'd like to see any change to the allocated budget for the purchase of Christmas lights. We typically purchase approximately $2,000 worth of Christmas lights to add to our display in Spirit Park. We have spent very little of our events budget this year, and so I'm bringing this forward for council to consider whether or not they would like to utilize some of that budget to buy some additional lights in excess of the $2,000 this year. So I'll turn it over to council.
Yeah, I'll just start off with the most pressing question, which is Halloween. And as earlier today, I was able to talk to Mark Hobaninsky, who has always helped me, and actually we've been able to buy the fireworks through him at a 50% off rate in regards to his business, in regards to be able doing the fireworks. He is strongly suggesting that we don't move forward with it at the end of this year. A couple reasons him and I talked about. Halloween this year, I believe, is on a Saturday night, which could be a little bit problematic, as well as the fact that he thinks that if it, if we start promoting an event and other municipalities aren't, we could have an influx of people here to the tune, pre-COVID, we were getting about, I'm going to estimate between 500 to 600 people. That could easily double, and that's not going to be good for our reputation in regards to having that. So his suggestion was to cancel it, let individual homeowners deal with Halloween as best they feel fit. I know last year my wife and I, we just had a clothesline hooked up at the end of the driveway, and it was really quite cute, and it worked out quite well. I don't think there was, I do know there was, walking through Ravenswood and that there was quite a few, a bit of activity there, but people were pretty much keeping their distance as best as they can. But I'm going to open up for council. I know council's been involved in Halloween for the last few years and last year, of course, it didn't transpire, so I'll go this way. Sorry. Councillor Trowbridge.
I'm in favor of canceling it, particularly when I saw the date and it's on a weekend. The police are going to be fully occupied, and if other municipalities, as you say, sort of trim down, and we have more than capacity and the police are preoccupied, it could turn from a happy thing to a very negative thing. So I don't think we're equipped for it, and I would prefer to put the energies into hoping that we can have a Christmas one and light up the park. And I would be a strong advocate for putting our money aside and buying those Christmas lights and boosting up that fund as well, because we have had a significant failure rate. So there's an attrition rate of the lights as well. So it's not like it incrementally goes up every year. We lose some every year. So.
Good. Councillor Webering.
Yeah, I have to agree. I think there's a lot of potential for a huge crowd, and just for all the reasons you guys just said. And it'd be nice that the three of us don't light ourselves on fire, setting the stupid things off. As for the Christmas budget, I do want to keep upgrading our lights, and what Councillor Trowbridge just said, we're replacing some pretty bad lights that were damaged over the years, so I want to keep that up. But I do think we have to hit a limit just because of the labor involved every year to put it up and take it down, right? So I think there's a magic number there. I don't think we're there yet, because I know we still have a lot to replace. And I know the lights that were put up in place of the old ones last year were so much better.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm in favor of that.
Any comments, Councillor Laidler?
I agree with the rest of the council.
Yeah, thanks. I will tell you in regards to Christmas, last year was a pretty dark time with, we're right in the midst of COVID, and families weren't able to gather. And I did receive several emails, and people, as I sort of do my circuit and walk around the block, complimenting that it was the one shining light, so to speak, in regards to having our Christmas lights in the park and people being able to come at their own will, and that, yeah, and what I think it was Georgia Lyons that did with bringing a bit of cheer in regards for people walking down Ravenswood as well. That community, that neighborhood really got involved, and I think it's money well spent. We're actually now in previous years we had a donation of people helping us put up the lights, but Devin has got his own business that he's pretty active in right now, so I don't think he can help, and I think we are doing a much higher quality light. We're actually and we're getting a boom in, which will happen sometime in probably November, and we'll get an early start on it with our Public Works Department. And again, I think it's something that I know I hear a lot from the community that they really enjoy it, and it gives everybody a chance to come up here. And who knows, maybe if things turn around in the next year, or we can have another Christmas festivity, maybe scaled down. So we'll play that by ear, but I'm certainly in favor of taking that money that we would have literally blown up and put it towards something that we'll have for a long time. And I know, just to reassure everybody, we now are on a program, we're buying commercial Christmas lights. We are hanging them up at the end of the term, drying them, making sure that they're put away so that they will last us a very long time. The LEDs lights now are much more stable and offer a lot more longevity. So do you need a resolution for that?
Yes, and I have one that that I can read out. I just wanted to confirm an amount for lights. So typically we spend $2,000, and we probably would spend approximately the same on fireworks. There are some offsets for donations, but if council feels it's reasonable, I could suggest a $4,000 purchase for lights this year.
Up to.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the resolution then would read that council directs staff to cancel the 2021 Halloween fireworks event, and that council additionally approve $4,000 for the purchase of lights to decorate Spirit Park.
Someone to move that? Moved, seconded. Any discussion? See none. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Thank you, Ms. Halliwell. Now move on to 11B, the 2021 Community Spirit Award. At the August 31st, 2021 special in-camera council meeting, it was resolved that council award the 2021 Community Spirit Award to Mark Roberts, and that council authorized the appropriate release of information. There's a few members in the audience that have, Mr. Piemonte isn't here, but Mark Roberts used to work as a finance, lives in Anmore. Family that's grown up here, gone to school. I got to know Mark quite well in regards to kids coaching, and I coached one of his boys in basketball. Mark became instrumental back in 2006, 2007 when I first got on council, and he was the head of finance in Port Moody. And when he said that when he moved to Anmore, his realtor at the time said, "I'm really wishing that you don't move there because of the financial situation that the village is in." But Mark took a gamble and he moved in here. But what he did do was he got involved right away on our finance committee. And previously, with the former mayor and council, they didn't have residents on the committee. It was just comprised of council. And Mark came on, and I will tell you, he looked at the books in a very detailed way and said, we need to start making some changes here, and we need to make them right away. And I know myself, there was Councillor Settergreen, Councillor Piemonte, Mayor Weinberg, I think, who else was, pardon?
Wasn't it Carrie?
Yeah, Councillor Carrie Palmer. There was one other person. No, I guess that was it. And he really conveyed the financial situation that the village was in. There was banked overtime that wasn't accounted for. Anyway, he really helped us with the council put some things in place to the start, and we got he talked us into bringing in a fellow by the name of Eric Vance, who is a financial consultant as well for communities. Anyway, Mark did yeoman's work in regards to helping, and with the work of council educating us in regards to what we needed to do. And it was a lot attributed to him that we're in a strong financial situation we are in regards to putting money away for capital, which we weren't funding at all. And then the other thing is that when we started on that capital asset levy back in 2007, he said it'll be remarkable how the compounding effect will really start to take effect in 5 or 6 years, and we see that now. But, there was 2 goals in mind at the time, and that was Sunnyside Road and a new village hall, because we knew that the village hall was not going to be around for very much longer, and it had to be replaced. So hopefully in the next month or 2, we're going to be able to maybe announce that project will be coming to fruition, because that's initially what a lot of that capital was for. Sunnyside Road, we've pretty much got most of it done right now in regards to resurfacing and refurbishing, but I really want to appreciate the fact that Mark Roberts put in so many hours and hours of time, even beyond committee work, where he would come into the village hall and assist in regards to that. So it was quite an honor to put his name forward, and he did phone me when I phoned him and told him about this. Unfortunately, we don't have Mount Murray Day where I would have made this announcement at, but I think it's with great pleasure that Mark Roberts won the Community Achievement or Spirit Award. So Thank you, Mark Roberts, and I guess we'll have to get him in here one of these days and do a photo op and that. So anybody else want to say anything about Mark?
It's funny, I've known Mark for years, actually. He was a very good friend of my wife's in high school, and I got to know him through playing soccer in the gym. And we would sit after soccer and he would tell me all about what was going on in the village and the way he saw it. And one of the examples he gave me was, I think Uplands was a fairly new subdivision at the time, and he said, Paul, there's 2 creek crossings in Uplands that cost almost $1 million each to put in. There's a pump station, there's roads, there's this. He laid it all out. He said, the cost of that infrastructure, the replacement cost is this much money. Do the math. How much should the village be saving? And I did the math, and he said, well, we're basically not saving anything. And we talked about East Road. I said, well, why has East Road been crap for 10 to 15 years? Because I was always told there's just no money to pay for it. So we really had to start saving. So, and he kind of instigated all that. And credit to council at the time, they got it. And, you know, we've continued with it. We've got an asset management plan. That's the whole point of an asset management plan. So you take your asset, what's this worth? What's it cost to replace? How long is it going to last? It's pretty simple math. So I think Mark gets a lot of credit for that. And I remember him telling me the same thing. His realtor told him that this village was not viable, you know, that the way it was going. So yeah, he's done a lot for this village.
Good. Anything else? Okay. Then I will move on, or there's no resolution? No. Okay. Mayor's report. Got a few things I wanted to bring up. This last Friday, I attended the Asian Impact Society launch, and it's hosted by Anmore's Celia Chang. It was well attended down at Cafe Devano. Celia's really, in the summer, she did a big launch. It's really just, you know, this anti-hate and everybody living amongst each other and being respectful. And it was really great to be there. She's quite an advocate, and she's going to get more involved in the coming months. On this past Saturday, October 2nd, I attended the grand opening of the new complex in Portco, the Portco Quillam, the sports complex, and let me tell you, it's quite a facility. I don't know if any of you have, you know, use any of the facilities, but they have 3 ice rinks. Of course, my interest was they had an outdoor basketball court that was amazing. I would have loved to have had something like that when I was a kid. 2 indoor courts, indoor pool, 2 gyms. It is really an impressive facility, and I would suggest all of you, it's officially opened. Go down there. If you have kids, they have an incredible outdoor area there with above the parking lot for kids to play in that. It is really, really something. I was blown away, and there was quite a few people in attendance there. And then on October 3rd, this Sunday, I was down at IOCO Days, and I spent a bit of time with Ruth Foster and what was her? Marianne Cooper was there, 106-year-old Marianne Cooper, and she reminded me very, very nicely about last year when Councillors Trowbridge, myself, and Councillor Weverink, for her birthday, went down and we each picked one of our cars and we drove down, and she remembered each one of them, and it was amazing too. And there's a movie that just got released as of late, and I would suggest everyone to get it. Quite an inspiration. And that it was, and IOCO Days, Mayor Drew was, or former Mayor Drew was there, Mayor Ross was there as well, and a few other people. It looked like people were having a great time, and it was somewhat of a scaled down event, but from years past, but the weather cooperated, so it was really nice. Just wanted to point out the new Saskatchewan Volunteer Fire Department sign identifying the Anmore Fire Hall is finally up. It also, as Chief Sharp said, it increases the sight lines dramatically for traffic, but it's a really good looking sign, and it's long overdue, identifying, you know, the Anmore portion of the Saskatchewan Volunteer Fire Department. I spent most of the day on a RCMP call. RCMP costing is going to go up due to contract talks. They're going to be getting their first collective agreement, so RCMP policing is going to be going up, and it's going to be retroactive. For us, that's not a huge effect, although we do spend, I think our budget is about $250,000 that we pay for policing right now, but that will be going up to, in conjunction with their first collective agreement, as well as the added pressure of the Surrey transition, as a lot of officers are leaving. So there's big concerns right now with the RCMP in regards to retention, as well as this new contract and how it's going to affect specific municipalities. And I have been honored this Friday, and I'll be participating in the joint naming of Belcara Park with the Tsleil-Waututh. The new park, and I hope I pronounce this right, is Temtamekten Belcara Regional Park. There'll be a joint commencement. I've got the honor that I'm going to be paddling in one of the canoes on Friday afternoon. There's going to, through the regional parks, we are also going to be doing a joint collaboration with the Tsleil-Waututh, and it's going to be an interpretive center. These lands were very, very important in their culture, and it's amazing that we're going to be able to do this. It's going to really add an incredible dimension to the park. So that's what I have for my mayor's report. Anything, councillor's report?
No, I was just going to speak to one thing on general correspondence, because I know we go through that fairly quickly. There was a letter from the BC Youth Parliament regarding applications, and I always am a big endorser of this, the Youth Parliament program in Victoria. My son did something similar. He did the university model parliament, where young people can go and actually have a mock legislative session, and they have different sides. You'll have the NDP, they'll have the Liberals or the Conservatives, and it's quite a good experience if you have kids that are interested in politics, which I did, which is why I'm here today, which I kind of regret sometimes. But it is a very good experience, and I would really encourage, if you know anyone of that age, to encourage them to give it a try if they're interested. That's it.
Good. Okay, we'll move on then to the Chief Administrative Officer's report. Ms. Halliwell.
Thank you, Mayor McEwen. Just a couple of things, really just to update the public to know that we're still, moving forward, inching forward with the AGE project. So they're having regular project meetings where we're just trying to sort of iron out the final details. And similarly with the Anmore Community Hub, we're still working on a process on how to best move forward with that, given the high tenders that came in over the summer. So we're working on that as well. And we did get notification a couple of weeks ago that one of the 2 grants that we applied for over the summer for the BC Active Transportation Grant, which was to help pay for installing a multi-use pathway along Sunnyside, was unfortunately turned down. So that one was for $500,000 with the village contributing up to 30%. But we still have one other that we're waiting to hear back on. So we will keep our fingers crossed for that.
Good.
That's it.
Good, thank you. Okay, we have some information items, minutes of the public hearing held on July 29th. And then we have some general correspondence from the ambulance paramedics dated September 3rd, Ministry of Children and Family Development, regarding October as Foster Family Month, and communications from the BC Youth Parliament, as Councillor Weberling said. So I'll now open up to public question period. Public is permitted to ask questions of council regarding any item. 2-minute time limit applies to speakers.
Sorry, just to get back to what I spoke to at the beginning of the meeting, and back to the traffic study, I hear talk of these different funds, and I understand you've got allocations for different things for the village. Would we not have some sort of funding to do a traffic study? Is there a fund available? What if you were to approve that, where would that slide into in the way of a fund?
Well, 2 things. Your first comment about the traffic study that you referenced, the village never did it. That was done by the proponent at the time. The first thing. The second thing is, it's pretty tough to do a traffic study on something that we don't know what could even be there.
But the problem is we know what we have right now. I mean, anybody that lives on one of the major streets can see the traffic. It's bad. Would that not be something before you were to make a decision on Anmore South? Would you not think that you would want to have an updated, not a 6-year-old study, whether it was done by, whoever it was done by, it was still a traffic study done?
We would demand any proposal come forward would have a independent traffic study.
But that would be after the fact, would that not be?
No, it wouldn't. It would be part of the proposal.
Okay, so if they bring a proposal, then they would be paying for the traffic study?
We would demand it, absolutely. As we did with, we've done a few of them, Pinnacle Ridge.
Okay.
Yeah.
So as long as, so you would not, council would not make a decision on Anmore South and the urban designation before having a traffic study done?
Any development coming forward would have to have,
Okay.
that would be part of the package.
Perfect, that's
Yep.
good, thank you.
Question this time.
Question, name and address,
Dick
just for the
Cresswell,
thanks.
1608 East Road. I'm not clear on whether or not Anmore South can be rezoned by itself or redesignated by itself, not rezoned, redesignated by itself, or if a part of it can be redesignated by itself. Did I make my question clear enough?
I think what you're saying is, could Anmore, correct me if I'm wrong, could Anmore South be urban or rural with difference from the rest of the community?
Yeah.
I would say that yes, it could be similar to what happened at Anmore Green Estates, because Anmore Green Estates right now is urban.
Yes, and I know the background on that. What is your intention, the council's intention, with regard to Anmore South and the redesignation?
I don't have any intention.
Okay. So, nothing's been decided yet, but it could be separate from the rest of Anmore?
Yep.
Okay.
Would be.
It would be.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Yeah.
If it were changed.
Yeah. Anything else?
Go ahead.
Canadian standoff.
Shubin Jalili, 1501 Crystal Creek. Mayor McEwen, on January 15th, 2015, in an article published by Vancouver Sun, you voiced your biggest concerns with respect to the development of the Ioko lands, recently known as Anmore South, around the potential environmental impacts. These were your own words that were quoted in that article. If the owner asked for a comprehensive zoning change to allow greater densities, there would be traffic issues. You further added, I have environmental concerns with all the creeks and waterways, and there's several of them. There's a brand new hatchery now being built in that area. Also, the big thing is the semi-rural atmosphere of the area. You also mentioned that the Anmore lands are now zoned for a minimum of 1 acre per home, and that the municipality could handle the additional traffic if any proposals stuck to that zoning. This comment was followed by a note to the developer that if they wanted to densify, it would have a huge impact. In 2018, in an interview with Tri-City News, you stated, all of Anmore is on septic systems, although an exception was made to allow Eagle Mountain to be hooked into Port Moody sewer system. You, sir, said, it's part of the village strategy to limit its growth, and residents aren't prepared to bear the $147,000 annual cost of belongings to the Greater Vancouver Sewerage and Drainage
Do you have
District.
a question, Mr.?
Yes,
Please.
I do.
If you could get...
Which
you have
spreads
2
the
minutes.
cost of regional sewer system across all member municipalities. People are pretty adamant up here that they don't want sewers, you said, adding the village's recently adopted official community plan states new developments can't exceed a density of 1.8 lots per acre. In summary, sir, in 2015 and until recent, you were concerned about the density of Anmore South, traffic and environmental, and in 2018, you had the same concerns about connecting to the sewer. I
was a recent, Anmore resident at that time. My family and I voted for you based on those. My question for you is, what changed, sir? Why did you change position?
A lot hasn't changed. What you quoted was a lot of things. When AGE got hooked up to urban, it was one of the articles that I put in the Anmore Times today. We were pretty much told that we were all going to be urban. And as I said, this council fought very hard that it wasn't fair for everybody else that is on septic systems. Anmore South, I don't know what's going to go there. I do think there is some environmental challenges. I think there's some traffic challenges. I've stated that. And I think that's why, as I said to the previous speaker, I said that we would be requiring all those environmental assessments as well as traffic consultants to be done to make sure that that development can go in there. Right now, the land is zoned RS1. So for a developer, for the owner of the land to come forward, it wouldn't even come to council and they could start developing it.
But, sir, do you think that, a study done by a developer is going to be unbiased? I know that it's going to be done by a third party, but do you think that it's going to be unbiased?
We would be reviewing it by our experts. And we have experts on call. So a lot of those things, the challenges with I just spent the $30,000 and redid my septic system. So I have no interest in going on it, but there are some people here that do have some interest. Again, this council is to look at the greater of Anmore. It's not just to look at specific areas. It's to look at the greater of the community and to listen to the community.
Yeah.
So
thank you.
I'll try to breathe this time. Nancy Maloney, 1724 East Road, and I actually have several questions.
You have 2 minutes, if you can keep them down to that, please.
My questions will not take longer than 2 minutes. I'm not sure about your answers, which shouldn't count against my time. But what has happened to the grants for the community hub, which were previously announced as a major way in which the cost to the village, would be reduced? A number of grants were applied for.
Ms. Halliwell?
We were expecting to have announcements made on the grants, but because of the recent federal election, that was delayed. So we're now hoping that in the next 2 months, we'll hear something.
Okay, so we don't know, is the answer. We don't know about the grants. Okay. And my other question, I had actually sent several messages to the village about this, but historically, Anmore has never acknowledged, despite, like John, you were just saying, how important this land was historically to our local First Nations communities, which I did that acknowledgement at the beginning of my first opportunity meeting. So why has our council, unlike many municipal councils, except for like Surrey being an exception, why are we not acknowledging First Nations?
We were going to have that conversation tonight, but unfortunately we didn't have all of council. Ms. Cryer, Councillor Cryer, is in travel right now. We will be having it, yes.
Okay, very good. Okay, so I hope that will be happening in the future, that our council will acknowledge our presence on First Nation territory. And also, I wondered if, I'm delighted that the fireworks have been canceled for this Halloween, and if anyone is interested and unaware, I could actually send you a lot of information that I have about how bad fireworks are for the environment. And I know it's a tradition, in Canada to have fireworks, or at least in our part of Canada to have fireworks on Halloween, but it's a tradition which has considerable environmental cost, and given that we want to present Anmore as a community which cares about the environment and about the wildlife in our environment, I would like to suggest that it not just be a temporary ban because of COVID on Halloween fireworks, but we think of another more environmentally sustainable way to celebrate with the children in the community the Halloween event.
Good.
And so let me know if you need information on why fireworks in general are a poor idea.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Andrew Simpson, 1466 Crystal Creek. Question for you on in-camera meetings. Was just doing some math today. I was about to say it was the 13th meeting today when I saw Greg Moore go out the back door before the council meeting went, but it was the 12th. And we have the 13th in-camera meeting.
Pardon?
I thought he was here earlier today. I thought I saw him. Maybe I'm wrong. But the point I'm trying to ask a question on is you have on the books the 13th in-camera meeting tomorrow in the space a year to date of 10 months. And going back 5 years prior, I haven't seen any. And so it's a question of how this council conducts business in an opaque manner, and why do you feel comfortable doing that when residents are asking for information related to these serious issues? And it just breeds uncertainty, and you wonder why residents are concerned that there's ulterior motives because we don't have the information. So my question is, when are these in-camera meetings going to stop, and when are we going to hear what's going on with those?
So first off, I've been on council for 14 years, and we've had the fewest in-camera meetings that we are regulated to do. As you probably heard earlier on, we had to have a in-camera meeting just to appoint a Community Spirit Award. So 13 for this year is a significantly lower number than we've ever had previously. So you know, I don't know where you're coming with that, but I would certainly suggest that you come in and read through some of the minutes and go back to many, many years, and you'll see in-camera meetings were a very, very common event. And we now, even through our corporate officer, we actually release all the in-camera stuff on a quarterly basis. What we talk about, Ms. Elmer?
Thank you, Mayor McCune. If I may add, if you're referring to the notices that are on the website, the reason that you're not seeing any from, say, 5 years ago is because previously we provided the notice as legislated, but in the past year or two, I'm not exactly sure how long, we've taken an extra measure of posting those notices and having them be maintained on with the other council meetings in order to be as transparent as possible. And there are certain requirements that some items are held in camera, so that's why you don't see them. It wasn't that there weren't in-camera meetings 5 years ago, it's just that we've changed our process in order to ensure that the public is aware of each and every council meeting, regular council meeting, special council meeting, and in-camera meeting. So that's why you're seeing the added notices on the website now.
And in terms of the details and minutes, are those available on the website? Because I haven't seen those every quarter.
The in-camera meetings are not available on the website, but periodically, at least twice a year, depending on the agenda items, council does consider which items are appropriate for release, and then that report comes to a regular council meeting.
Okay, thank you. Just one last quick question was just on the timeliness of information. When I go back to, for example, this Metro Vancouver meeting, that letter was received in July, and we only heard about it as residents a week before the meeting, and I'm just wondering why there is such a lag time. Another example I'll provide is that back in April, Icona wrote you a letter saying they won't put in a development proposal until you change the designation to urban. That was presented in early April, and council did not let residents know about this letter until mid-August. So these are big lags, in my view, of information being openly provided to the residents. I'm just wondering why there's such a lag going on.
I can't speak to that.
I can speak to that. So the letter in July would have come after a point at which we had our last July regular council meeting before we broke for August. I do believe that the letter and the regional growth strategy was provided on an agenda subsequently, and it was at that time when we received the letter that we started conversation with Metro Vancouver over the summer as to when it would be a mutually available time for them to come and do the presentation. So the information was made available, but we just didn't have the delegation here before today.
I believe the information was made available in late September, not any time before that.
It would have been on whatever the first agenda was after we had received it, and we had the break in August.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Oh,
One quick question.
Just for the record, please.
Doug Richardson, 2305 East Road. With respect to the 4 bids that were well over what the budget was for the hub, can you share what the average is, or what the high was and what the low was?
Ms. Halliwell?
Certainly, that's public information. So the lowest bid was $9 million, and the highest bid, I don't have the number off the top of my head, but it was just shy of 10.
Okay, and that's for the...
9.8, thank you.
And that's for the 6.5 million budget, not the 6.5 million plus the contingency, correct?
That was a submitted tender for the project.
That was inclusive of...
It did include contingencies.
Yeah.
So it's the equivalent of the $8 million budget.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, and then just on the traffic study, I think you were clear that if a developer comes and says we want to develop, that prior to accepting that development, you would make them do a traffic study. But the real question is, will there be a traffic study before you convert, or try to convert, or decide to convert between rural and urban? Because that would be Anmore's responsibility, not the developers.
Yeah, go ahead.
I can?
Yeah.
This has been a long time confusion here. There wouldn't be a need for a traffic study before we contemplate, as a community, whether or not the designation has changed, because the designation unto itself has no impact on the zone. Rezoning is all about density. A designation change has nothing to do with density. You can have an urban designation without changing density. So it's not really relevant, Doug. It's more relevant when, excuse me, more relevant when a developer brings a rezoning proposal, and at that point in time, absolutely, you need a traffic study before considering it.
And what you're saying, I understand. I knew that beforehand. But as I've discussed previously, I think with Paul a little bit, the rural designation absolutely dictates a limit on density. Because if you don't have a sewer system, you can't go high density.
Well, I would actually correct you on that. If you take, for example, the Tawasin band, they put in their own septic thing, and their sewage treatment plant. Yeah.
But what's their density?
Oh, they put in, well, the Amazon facility, yeah, it was $26 million. Google it, and you can get the whole particulars on it. They didn't need to hook up to the GVS and DD because they were in an argument with Delta at the time to get services, so they just did it on their own. So
that's interesting.
Tawasin, I think, has they've added about 6,000 or 7,000 units with that.
Plus the commercial.
Yeah.
But we don't think a sewage treatment plant housed in our borders is necessarily a good idea.
Yeah. Any other questions? Okay, well,
If I could just follow up. So I did find those dates specifically. So the Metro 2050 draft letter and report was received by the village on July 20th, which was the same date as our last meeting before the summer break.
Okay.
And it was presented on the first agenda following the break, which was September the 14th.
Okay, did you get that? Yeah, okay, good. Before I move adjournment, I just want to wish everybody a safe and happy Thanksgiving weekend this weekend. Good time to be with family and that, and I'll move to adjourn. Moved, seconded, any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you, everybody.